The punch bowl shattered against the oak-paneled wall like a gunshot in the crowded frat house living room, splattering crimson liquid across the starched collars of the nearest jocks. And in that frozen instant every eye locked on me, the uninvited gay kid who just accidentally elbowed it over while trying to squeeze through the throng. "Faggot can't even hold his drink," snarled Chad, the linebacker whose party this was, his voice slicing through the stunned silence like a knife through butter, and I felt the room's oxygen evaporate as laughter erupted, hot and mocking, sealing me off in a bubble of shame. But then from the shadowed corner where the professors lurked like reluctant chaperones, a man with salt and pepper hair and eyes like storm clouds pushed forward, his voice steady as granite. "That's enough. Clean it up yourselves. Manners aren't optional here." I bolted for the backyard patio, heart hammering like a freight train on bad tracks, the screen door slamming behind me with a finality that echoed my isolation. It was one of those crisp October nights in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where the air bit just enough to remind you fall was turning mean, and the university's homecoming bash was in full swing. Frat boys chugging beers, sorority girls in sequin tops giggling under string lights. The whole scene a glossy postcard of Midwestern college life that I'd never quite fit into. At 22, a junior majoring in English Lit, I was the scholarship kid from a nowhere town in Ohio, the one who'd come out freshman year and watched my handful of friends scatter like leaves in a gale. Being gay in a place like this wasn't a death sentence anymore, not legally anyway, but it might as well have been socially. I'd shown up tonight hoping against hope that the alumni donors milling about might spark some connection, maybe a nod toward the grad programs I dreamed of, but one spilled punch and Chad's slur later, here I was, exiled to a plastic Adirondack chair under the weeping willow, nursing a solo cup of flat soda and staring at the fire pit's dying embers as if they held the answers to why I always ended up alone. The party noise filtered through like distant thunder. Bass-thumping pop anthems, bursts of laughter that twisted the knife deeper. I pulled my knees up, burying my face in the faded denim of my jeans, the chill seeping through my thin hoodie. Mom had always said I was too sensitive, too much of a dreamer for the Rust Belt grit she knew. But dreams don't pay the bills or fill the empty seats at parties. I'd written poems about this ache, the kind that professors praised in workshop but never quite understood, verses about loving in the margins, about boys who looked at you like you were a glitch in their straight-laced code. But tonight, those words felt as useless as the rainbow sticker peeling off my laptop back in the dorm. Footsteps crunched on the gravel path, deliberate and unhurried, pulling me from my spiral. I glanced up, expecting Chad come to gloat or some pitying RA with a wellness check, but it was him, the man from the corner, the one who'd shut down the room with a single sentence. Up close he was taller than I'd thought, maybe 6'2", with a build that spoke of weekend hikes rather than gym obsessions. Broad shoulders under a tweed blazer that screamed tenured faculty, khakis pressed just so, and loafers scuffed from real life. His face was all angles, high cheekbones shadowed by that stubble, a jawline that could cut glass, and those eyes gray-blue and piercing, like Lake Huron on a moody day. He carried 2 fresh cups of punch, the real stuff this time. No spikes from the frat's special bowl. "Mind if I join you?" His voice was low, cultured, with that faint trace of East Coast polish that always made Midwesterners bristle. No preamble, no awkward small talk, just a quiet command wrapped in courtesy. I shrugged, wiping my sleeve across my eyes before he could see the dampness. "Free country. Or at least the backyard is." He chuckled, a warm rumble that cut through the night like sunlight on frost, and settled into the chair across from me, extending one cup. "Elliot Hargrove. Literature Department. And you victim of the evening's most dramatic spill. Alex Rivera." I took the cup, our fingers brushing just long enough to send a spark up my arm. The kind you read about in Austin but never believe in real life. And yeah, that's me. King of faux pas. Elliot leaned back, sipping his punch, his gaze steady but not invasive, like he was reading me but not judging the typos.
Faut pas un pliante.
That was an accident in a room full of accidents waiting to happen. Chad's got a chip on his shoulder the size of the big house. Football scholarship, daddy issues. The usual. I snorted, the sound half laugh, half sob. Easy for you to say. You're the professor. You snap your fingers and the undergrads scatter. Not always. He tilted his head, studying the fire's glow on my face. I saw you earlier, you know, before the punch apocalypse. You were talking to Professor Lang about that thesis on Baldwin and the American queer canon. Your points were sharp, sharper than half the grad students I advise. Heat flooded my cheeks, equal parts flattery and suspicion. How had he noticed? I'd mumbled through that convo, feeling like an imposter in my thrift store button-down. You were eavesdropping? Observing. It's my job. His smile was crooked, disarming, revealing a dimple that aged him backward a decade. He had to be pushing 40, maybe 45, with lines around his eyes that spoke of late nights grading papers and early mornings regretting them. Married? Kids? The ring finger was bare, but that meant nothing these days. And honestly, Alex, in a sea of beer pong champions reciting Frat Boy 101, you stood out. Not for being different, for being real. Real. The word hung there, heavy as the willow branches overhead, and for the first time that night, the knot in my chest loosened just a fraction. We talked then, easy as breathing, about James Baldwin's fire in Giovanni's room, how it mirrored the quiet rebellions we both carried, about Ann Arbor's hidden gems, like the Zingerman's Bakehouse at dawn or the hidden trails along the Huron River where the world felt less hostile. Elliot had grown up in Boston, Ivy League pedigree, but he'd chosen Michigan for the grit, he said. The way the heartland forced you to confront what polished coasts glossed over. Divorced 5 years back. No kids, thank God. And out since college, though he'd learned to wear his queerness like a well-tailored suit. Present but not provocative. Hours slipped by unnoticed, the party devolving into sloppy chants inside while out here. Under the stars pricking through the willow's veil, it felt like we'd carved out a pocket universe. He asked about my poems, really asked, pulling out his phone to jot notes on a metaphor I'd tossed out about fractured mirrors and stolen glances. I confessed the doubt that gnawed at me. Applying to MFA programs felt like shouting into a void, especially when advisors like Lang treated queer lit like a niche elective. Elliot listened, not with pity, but with the fierce empathy of someone who'd walked the same tightrope. You have a voice, Alex, he said finally as the fire popped its last. Don't let these idiots dim it. Or me for that matter. Me? The implication landed soft, tentative, and I met his eyes, seeing the flicker there. The same spark I'd felt at that first touch. Why would you dim it? Because sometimes the people who see you clearest are the ones who complicate everything. He stood, offering a hand to pull me up, his grip firm, lingering. Walk with me. Campus is only a few blocks. Safer than navigating that zoo alone. I nodded, heart tripping over itself, and as we stepped onto the leaf-strewn sidewalk, the world tilted just a little, like the first page of a story you can't put down. Little did I know Elliot Hargrove wasn't just a professor. He was the plot twist that would unravel me, thread by aching thread. By the time we reached my dorm on South State Street, the campus bells were tolling midnight, their deep chimes rolling over the empty lawns like a benediction. Ann Arbor after dark had that magical hush, street lamps casting pools of amber on the brick facades. The distant hum of late-night pizza deliveries the only reminder of the living city beyond. Elliot walked with that unhurried stride, hands in his pockets, occasionally bumping my shoulder in a way that felt accidental but wasn't. We detoured past the law quad, its gargoyles grinning down like mischievous uncles, and he launched into a tale about his first year teaching. A disastrous lecture on Whitman where he'd quoted Calamus too passionately, earning a mix of applause and awkward coughs. You should have seen their faces, he said, laughing. Like I just confessed to skinny dipping in the diagram. Would you? I teased, emboldened by the night air and the way his laugh lit him up. Skinny dip, I mean. In this weather? Only if you were there to warm me up. The words hung, playful but edged with heat, and he cleared his throat, glancing away.
Sorry.
Line crossing.
Professo habits die hat.
But it wasn't a habit, it was an invitation, tentative as a first rain of spring, and I grabbed it.
No epalegis.
I like the view from here. We paused at the Arboretum gate, the ironwork creaking under my hand as I pushed it open. The paths wound through maples shedding their crimson cloaks, the ground a carpet of decay that smelled like earth and promise. Elliot followed, his presence a steady gravity, and we found a bench by the pond, the water black and still, reflecting slivers of moon. Sitting closer now, thighs brushing, the conversation deepened, peeling back layers like onion skins. He spoke of his ex, a high school lit teacher who'd tired of the academic nomad life, how the divorce had left him hollow, questioning if love was just another narrative we told ourselves to stave off the void. I shared my own scars. The high school bullies who'd scrawled slurs on my locker. The way Dad had nodded at my coming out but never said the words, "I love you." The same after. The poems I'd burned in a fit of rage because they felt too raw, too exposing. "You're brave, Alex," he murmured, his hand finding mine on the bench slats, fingers interlacing with a gentleness that belied his strength. "Braver than I was at your age. I hid for years, closeted in Cambridge, dating women to keep the tenure track smooth. It ate me alive." I turned to him, our faces inches apart, the pond's ripple the only sound. "Hiding's easy. Being seen. That's the terror. Then let me see you." And he did, leaning in slow, giving me every out, every beat to pull back. But I didn't. Our lips met, soft at first, exploratory, tasting of punch and possibility, then deeper, a hunger long starved, breaking free. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb tracing my cheekbone, and for those stolen minutes, the world narrowed to the press of his mouth, the faint cedar of his cologne, the way he sighed my name like a prayer. We broke apart, breathless, foreheads touching, and he whispered, It's not simple. I'm your professor technically, though not in your classes. Ethics boards, rumors. But God, Alex, I haven't felt this alive in years." "Neither have I." I squeezed his hand, pulse racing. "Worth the complication?" His smile was rueful, eyes shining. "Every damn one." We walked the rest of the way in companionable silence, hands brushing when we could, parting at my dorm steps with a chaste kiss that promised more. "Coffee tomorrow? Nichols Arboretum, 10 a.m. I'll bring the bad poetry." "Deal." I watched him go, silhouette merging with the night, and slipped inside, the dorm's fluorescent buzz a rude awakening. My roommate Jake was out cold, snoring through his gaming headphones, oblivious to the earthquake in my chest. I collapsed onto my bed, staring at the ceiling cracks that mapped out like faulty constellations, replaying every glance, every word. Elliot Hargrove. Professor. Stranger turned spark. It felt like the start of something epic, the kind of romance that lit majors and undergrads whispered about in hushed tones, taboo, thrilling, alive. But as sleep tugged at me, a shadow flickered. Chad's slur, the party's eyes, the way Elliot's ex-story ended in goodbye. Love in America, I knew, wasn't just fireworks, it was the fallout, the fights for every inch of ground. Still, for the first time, I wasn't running from it. I was running toward. The next morning dawned brittle and bright, frost etching patterns on the dorm window like lace doilies from Grandma's attic. I woke with Elliot's kiss still ghosting my lips, a smile stubborn against the hangover of doubt creeping in. What was I doing? Hooking up with a professor? Sure, he wasn't my direct advisor, but the lines blurred fast in a town where everyone knew everyone's business. And Arbor thrived on gossip, from the DIEX protest marches to the backroom deals in the president's office. One wrong whisper, and my MFA dreams could evaporate like morning mist. But coffee waited, and so did he. I threw on my favorite cable knit sweater, the one Mom knit during her artsy phase before the factory layoffs hit, and jeans that hugged just right, adding a spritz of the cologne I'd splurged on last Pride. Nichols Arboretum was a 10-minute bike ride, the paths already dusted with early joggers and dog walkers, the Huron River glinting like fool's gold under the climbing sun. I locked my bike to the rack near the peony garden, heart doing that stupid flutter as I scanned the benches. There he was, under a sugar maple shedding amber confetti, 2 steaming mugs from Comet Coffee beside him, a dog-eared copy of Leaves of Grass open on his knee. "You showed," he said, standing to greet me with a hug that lingered, his chin brushing my hair. He smelled of soap and old books, a combo that hit like home. "I half expected campus security to haul you off for fraternizing with the enemy." "Enemy?" I pulled back, grinning though nerves twisted low. "Nah, you're more like the intriguing anti-hero, the one who quotes Byron while plotting world domination." He laughed, handing me the darker roast. "How'd he know?" And we wandered the trails, leaves crunching underfoot like whispered secrets. Conversation flowed like the river beside us. His disastrous attempt at a TEDx talk on queer subtext in Hawthorne, my secret project. A novel about a closeted trucker finding love on Route 66. He didn't patronize, didn't advise from on high. He listened, probed with questions that made me see my own words anew. "That's your strength, Alex, the specificity. The diner booth sticky with grease, the neon flickering eat like a heartbeat. It's American as hell, and queer as a $3 bill. By noon we'd looped to the ferry doors, those whimsical half-sized portals hidden in tree roots, a local artist's gift to the whimsical. He traced one carved with vines, his finger lingering. Reminds me of us. Tiny entrances to whole worlds. I stepped closer, emboldened. Then let's explore. Our second kiss was bolder, hidden by the oaks, his hands framing my face as if I were porcelain. No rush, just the slow burn of discovery. Lips parting, breaths mingling. The world fading to the rustle of wind and the thud of my pulse. When we surfaced, flushed and grinning, he tucked a fallen leaf behind my ear. Dangerous habit, this. The best kind. But as we biked back, me to class, him to office hours, a text buzzed. Jake, my roommate. Dude, heard you caused a scene at Chad's last night. Watch your back, guys are pissed. The glow dimmed, reality's chill finger tracing my spine. That week blurred into a stolen rhythm. Coffee dates masked as study sessions. Late-night emails dissecting sonnets that doubled as flirtations. A brush of hands in the library stacks that left me dizzy. Elliot's office in the English building was a sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling shelves groaning with first editions. A window overlooking the quad where we'd first locked eyes at that reading. He'd clear his desk of papers, pour cheap Cabernet from a hidden flask, and we'd talk until the custodian's keys jangled warning. He shared stories of his Boston youth. Cruising the Charles River Esplanade in secret. The thrill of a first grinder meetup that ended in disaster but sparked his coming out. I confessed the terror of my Ohio prom. Dancing alone in the gym's shadows while straight couples twirled. Vowing I'd never hide again. You're rewriting that narrative, he said one night, his thumb stroking my wrist as we sat cross-legged on his rug. Every word. But cracks spiderwebbed in. Chad's crew upped their game. Anonymous notes in my mailbox. Prof's pet. Stares in the cafeteria that felt like lasers. Then the rumor mill churned. Elliot's ex, Rebecca, back in town for a conference, spotted us at Zingerman's. She was poised, blonde, the kind of woman who turned heads in faculty lounges. Harmless, I thought, until her email hit my inbox 2 days later. He's using you, Alex. A rebound to fill the void. Walk away before it breaks you both. I deleted it, but the poison seeped. Was I just a phase? A youthful distraction for a man who'd lost his bearings? Doubt festered, especially when Elliot canceled our Friday hike. Department meeting, he said. But his voice was clipped, distant. I filled the void with work, pounding out chapters in the undergrad lounge. But the words turned jagged, laced with betrayal's foreshadow. The breaking point came midterms week. Rain lashing the windows like accusations. I showed up at his office unannounced, soaked and shaking. The novel's latest draft clutched like a shield. Read it, I demanded, voice cracking. Tell me if it's enough, if I'm enough. He pulled me inside, door clicking shut, and wrapped me in his coat, but his eyes were shadowed. Alex, wait. There's something. The knock interrupted, sharp as a gavel. Dean Whitaker, all bluster and bowtie, barged in with HR in tow. Hargrove, a word. Complaints about impropriety. The room spun. Chad's doing, no doubt. Whispers amplified into formal reports. Elliot's face drained of color, but he stepped forward, shield raised. This is a student meeting. Schedule it. Can't wait. The dean eyed me like evidence. Rivera, out. I fled. Rain blurring the quad. Chest heaving with sobs I couldn't choke down. Back in the dorm, Jake was waiting, face grim. Bro, it's everywhere. They say you're screwing for grades. Lies, all of it, but the damage stuck like tar. My phone buzzed. Elliot. Meeting now. Stay strong. I love you. Love. The word hit like lightning, but too late. The storm had broken. That night I ghosted him, curling into bed with Baldwin's essays, seeking solace in words that echoed my fracture. But dawn brought resolve. I wouldn't let them win. Not Chad, not the dean, not my own fear. Elliot deserved better than a coward's silence. As the bells tolled, I dressed for war. Notebook in hand, heart armored, and headed to his office, ready to fight for the story we'd only just begun. The confrontation unfolded like a scene from one of those noir films Elliot adored. Shadows long in the hallway, fluorescence, my footsteps echoing like a heartbeat on trial. I'd rehearsed it all morning over burnt diner toast. Calm, collected, no tears. But when I pushed open his door, the script crumbled. He was at his desk, tie loosened, a half-empty coffee mug staining a stack of complaint forms. His eyes met mine, raw and red-rimmed, and he stood so fast the chair toppled. "Alex, God, I thought you'd bailed for good." He crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling me into an embrace that crushed the air from my lungs, his stubble rough against my temple. The meeting was hell. Whitaker's gunning for suspension. Ethics violation. Conflict of interest. Chad's dad is an alum donor. He twisted it into a scandal. I clung to him, inhaling that familiar cedar, the tremor in his arms mirroring mine. "It's bullshit. Nothing's happened beyond kisses talks. I'm not trading sex for A's." "I know." He pulled back, cupping my face, thumbs wiping phantom tears. "But optics, Alex. In this town, perception's king." Rebecca stirred the pot too, called Whitaker, concerned about my impulse control. The ex. Her email burned fresh. "She hates me. Thinks I'm a toy." Elliot's jaw tightened, a storm brewing. "She's hurt projecting. But this? It's bigger than her jealousy. It's the machine grinding us down. The same one that closeted me for years." We sank onto the leather couch, his arm around my shoulders, the rain a relentless drum outside. He confessed it all. The dean's ultimatum, resign quietly or face investigation, with my name dragged through the mud as the other party. My scholarships, my rec letters, all collateral. "I can't let them touch you," he said, voice breaking. "You're the best thing I've found in this mess of a life." "Then fight," I whispered, turning to him, our noses brushing. "With me. We go public on our terms. Email the department, the student paper. Show them we're not ashamed." His laugh was bitter, but his eyes sparked. "Revolutionary. Baldwin would approve." We spent the hour plotting. A joint statement, witnesses like Lang who'd seen our professional chats, my poems as proof of independent merit. But as his lips found mine, desperate, affirming, the kiss shifted from comfort to conflagration, hands roaming with the urgency of thieves in the night. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed. "Not here," he murmured. "Not like this. Later then." Promise sealed. The backlash hit like a Michigan winter, swift and brutal. By evening, campus Twitter was ablaze. Prof lover trending, memes of tweed jackets over rainbow flags. Chad's crew escalated. Tires slashed on my bike, graffiti on my door. Homewrecker. Jake stood by me, surprisingly solid, even crashing on Elliot's couch that night when dorm security got twitchy. Elliot's place was a professor's dream. Victorian row house off Washtenaw, bookshelves to the ceiling, a kitchen that smelled of fresh basil from his window herbs. We cooked pasta, burnt edges and all, talking strategy till dawn, his hand on my knee a constant anchor. But betrayal lurked closer than Chad's malice. 2 days in, during a strategy lunch at Blimpie Burger, Elliot's phone lit up. Rebecca again. He stepped out for the call, returning ashen. "She's filing for alimony review. Claims emotional distress from my reckless behavior. And she knows about you. Threatens to go to the press." The burger turned to ash in my mouth. "How?" "Doesn't matter." I ended it, blocked her. But doubt seeded. Was this love or a grenade he'd lobbed into my youth? The climax crashed that Friday. Homecoming game roaring in the distance as Elliot and I met in the Arboretum for air. We drafted the statement, allies lining up, queer alliance reps, even Whitaker's assistant leaking procedural flaws. Hope flickered. Then from the shadows, Chad emerged with 2 meathead backups, faces twisted in that false bravado drunks wear. "Traitor Prof and his bitch," Chad spat, shoving Elliot hard enough to stagger him. "Ruining U of M for your fag parade." Rage boiled. I lunged, fist connecting with Chad's jaw in a crack that echoed like thunder. Chaos erupted. Punches thrown, grunts and curses until campus cops swarmed, tasers drawn. Elliot shielded me, taking a wild swing to the ribs, his gasp fueling my fury. "Enough!" he roared, voice professor command cutting through. "This ends now." Handcuffs bit cold as they let us off, separate cars, separate stations. In the holding cell, reeking of stale sweat and regret, I paced, knuckles throbbing. Betrayal? No, this was solidarity, raw and real. Hours later, released on technicalities, trespassing for them, self-defense for us, we met outside the station, bruises blooming like badges. "You fought," Elliot said, tracing my split lip. For us. Always. We kissed under the sodium lamps, tasting blood and victory. The game's cheers a distant roar. The fallout reshaped everything. Whitaker caved, public pressure from student protests, a viral op-ed I penned for the Michigan Daily titled, Love in the Stacks. Why Academia Fears the Queer Heart. Elliot got a reprimand, no suspension. Chad faced expulsion hearings, his daddy's checkbook no shield against assault charges. Rebecca backed off, her bluff called. Winter thawed into spring, our romance blooming quiet but fierce. Picnics by the Huron, readings in his garden where I'd debut poems laced with his metaphors. He mentored me, not as prof but partner, editing drafts over wine, celebrating my MFA acceptances to Iowa and Columbia with dances in the living room to Coltrane. Yet scars lingered. And Arbor's whispers followed, a reminder that love here was hard-won, humanistic in its imperfection. We talked marriage one lazy July afternoon, tangled in sheets, but opted for commitment's quiet vow, no rings, just ringside seats to each other's unraveling and remaking. Years on, from my Brooklyn apartment, Elliot visiting every sabbatical, I look back on that party as fate's sly hook. Seated away different, I found not just a professor, but a mirror. Two men, American dreamers in a land that bent but never broke us. Love, it turns out, isn't the absence of betrayal or storm. It's the courage to rewrite the ending together. The summer after graduation sweltered like a fever dream, and Arbor's humidity clinging to skin like unspoken regrets. But for me and Elliot, it was a season of tentative freedoms. With my MFA acceptance to the Iowa Writers' Workshop secured, thanks in no small part to his discreet guidance, though I'd clawed every line myself, the pressure valve hissed open. No more campus corridors thick with judgment. No Chad lurking in the shadows like a bad sequel. We packed a cooler with Zingerman subs and drove west on a 94, windows down, Springsteen blasting Thunder Road, as if it were our anthem. The road unspooled toward the sleeping bear dunes. Lake Michigan's turquoise promise calling like a lover's note. You're quiet, Elliot said at a rest stop near Kalamazoo, handing me a lukewarm Coke from the machine. His hair whipped wild in the breeze, silver threads catching sun like secrets. We'd aged into this, me 23 now, him nudging 50, but the gap felt less chasm, more bridge. Just thinking. I leaned against the hood of his old Subaru, the metal hot under my palms. I was a fresh start, but leaving you here? Feels like ripping out a chapter mid-sentence. He stepped close, his hand light on my waist, thumb circling in that absent-minded way that always grounded me. 3 hours by car, Alex. We'll make it a haiku. Absence sharpens the heart. I laughed, pulling him in for a kiss that tasted of salt and possibility, ignoring the trucker at the pump who glanced twice. Public displays were still a gamble in rural Michigan, but we'd grown bolder, braver. Poet's answer. What about the real one? Will you visit? Or is this the part where the prof ghosts the grad student? His eyes darkened, not with anger but the weight of truths we'd skirted. Never ghost. But real talk, distance tests. My sabbaticals next year, Iowa, full semester. We sink it. Sink. The word hung optimistic, but undercurrents pulled. His tenure tether, my nomadic writer's itch, the way America stretched between us like a map dotted with no-fly zones for men like us. Still we pressed on, dunes rising like golden waves, and spent the weekend climbing sands that burned feet, collapsing into laughter at the crests, bodies tangled in the troughs. At night, bonfire lit, we shared stories. His of a clandestine 90s pride in Boston, mine of Ohio bonfires where I'd hidden crushes in the flames. Love, we agreed, was the spark that outlasted the blaze. Back in Ann Arbor, reality reasserted. Packing boxes in my old dorm, now sublet to a wide-eyed freshman. Farewell drinks with Jake, who clapped my back and joked, "Don't go all Hemingway on us, write the queer stuff, man." Elliot helped load the U-Haul. His quiet efficiency a bomb, but tension simmered. Rebecca had slunk back to Chicago, alimony squared away, but her shadow lingered in his hesitations, late-night sighs over lesson plans, a reluctance to unpack his ex's ghost fully. One August evening, as fireflies danced in his garden, it boiled over. We'd grilled trout from the Huron, the air thick with charcoal and unspoken. "You ever think about us long-term?" I asked, poking at the coals. "Not just visits, Roots. A place that's ours." He set down his fork, face unreadable in the twilight. Every day. But roots mean risk. I'm out but not loud. Colleagues still side-eye, students whisper. And you're young, Alex. The world at your feet. Don't tether to my baggage. Baggage. The word stung like betrayal's aftertaste. Is that what I am? A fling before the real life's anchor drops. No. He reached for me, but I stood, chair scraping gravel. It's fear. Mine. Losing you to the distance, or worse, to resentment if I hold you back. The argument spilled. My accusations of half-measures, his defenses laced with old wounds, the divorce that left him gun-shy, the academy's glass closet. I love you, he said finally, voice raw. But love's not ownership. It's choice every damn day. I stormed to the guest room, doors slamming like punctuation, curling under quilts that smelled of him. Dawn brought apologies, coffee on the nightstand, a note, Whitman's leaves. We contain multitudes. Forgive my smallness. We mended slow, bodies reconciling where words failed. But the rift lingered, a fault line waiting for quake. Iowa welcomed me with cornfields endless as ambition. Iowa City, a literary valhalla of brick-lined streets and dive bars where writers nursed drafts and grudges. The workshop was brutal ballet. Peers dissecting my novel like surgeons. My trucker protagonist's queer awakening praised for its grit but prodded for Midwestern melodrama. I thrived on the edge, late nights in the Prairie Lights bookstore cafe, scribbling revisions till fingers cramped. Eliot's letters, actual paper postmarked in arbor, were lifelines. Critiques gentle as rain, anecdotes of freshman comp disasters that made me howl. But distance not. Phone calls crackled with static, text truncated by time zones. He visited in October, leaves turning the Iowa riverbanks to fire, and we holed up in my cramped apartment, cooking chili and reading aloud from my drafts. This scene, the motel rendezvous, it's electric, he murmured, head on my shoulder. You capture the ache, the hope. We made love then, slow and sacred, the way lovers do when reunion's sweet urgency meets separation's ache. Afterward, tangled in sheets, he traced my tattoos, a small Baldwin quote on my rib. People who cannot love each other. Finish it, he whispered. Until they learn the only way is to love until death. I kissed his temple. Us against the miles. But betrayal brewed subtle, insidious. November brought his sabbatical delay. Funding cuts, department politics. Next fall, promise, he emailed, but excuses piled. Conferences, ailing mother in Boston. I filled voids with workshop flings, harmless or so I told myself. A poet with ink-stained fingers who saw my fire but not my fractures. Guilt twisted when Eliot called, his voice tinny. Miss you, Alex. Workshop treating you right. Like a prize fight. Laughter forced. The lie festered. Christmas pulled me east. Ohio first, Mom's obligatory turkey and Dad's gruff, proud of ya, son, laced with the unsaid. Then in Arbor, Eliot's house aglow with lights I'd strung last summer. He greeted me at the door, flour dusted from pie baking, pulling me into a kiss that erased the miles. My wandering star returns. The holiday blurred idyllic. Sledding on the Arboretum hills though snow fell light. Midnight mass at the campus chapel, holding hands hidden in the pews. New Year's on his couch, champagne toasting to narratives unfinished. But undercurrents roiled. One night, rifling for Advil in his desk, I found it. A photo faded. Him and Rebecca at some gala, arms linked, her smile possessive. Tucked behind a letter, her script. You can't run from us forever, L. He's a phase. Come home. Heart plummeting, I confronted him at dawn. Photo thrust like evidence. A phase? Is that what I am? His face crumpled. Alex, no. That's old Priu. Kept it for closure. Therapy crap. Closure? Or regret? The words lashed, born of my own insecurities, the poet's brush-offs, the Miles magnification of doubts. You delay the sabbatical, bury in work. Afraid I'll eclipse her ghost. He recoiled as if slapped. You're twisting it. I'm building a case for us. Tenure means stability, a life where I can follow you without begging. But if you can't trust. Trust? When your drawer screams otherwise. Tears hot. I packed, duffel half-zipped, the holiday magic shattering like cheap ornaments. He blocked the door, eyes pleading. Don't. Please. This is the betrayal we feared. Not mine but the distance's. Fight with me, not against.
I post, bay sleeping.
His arms enveloped and we wept into each other, confessions spilling. My workshop dalliances, his buried fears of aging out of youth's grace. We're human, he whispered. Flawed drafts. But editable. We edited that winter, weekly video dates, vulnerability journals exchanged like love letters. Spring bloomed with his sabbatical approval. Iowa bound, our timelines aligning. Graduation neared, my thesis defense a triumph. The novel, now laced with our story's echoes, earning nods for its tender ferocity. Yet climax loomed in summer's heat. Elliot arrived in Iowa City, boxes of books and cedar cologne, leasing a cottage by the river. We celebrated with a bonfire, locals toasting the Professor power couple. But dawn brought the call. Whitaker, retired but vindictive, leaking old files to the Iowa workshop director. Ethics review. The email read. Hargrove's history, potential conflict with your advising. Betrayal's specter, resurrected. The director summoned us, office stuffy with implication. Appearances, Alex. Your recs from him, optics. Elliot's face thundered. Optics be damned. Read his work. Judge the merit. I spoke then, voice steady. Love doesn't fabricate talent. It hones it. The director relented. Files dismissed as sour grapes, but the quake shook us. In the aftermath, by the river's rush, Elliot knelt. Not proposal but pledge.
No rins, no rus.
But a promise. Wherever the road leads, I'm your co-author. Tears mixed with river mist. Deal. Years wove on, my novel published to quiet acclaim. His sabbaticals sinking our orbits. Betrayals came. A bad review echoing old slurs, a health scare that tested vows. But each rebuilt us stronger, humanistic in grace. In America's vast heartland we carved our queer epic, not flawless but fiercely ours. Love, after all, is the ultimate revision, endless, evolving, enduring. From Iowa's flat expanse to Brooklyn's jagged skyline, our story jagged with it. A transplant of Midwestern roots into concrete soil, where ambition bloomed wild but thorny. I'd landed the novel deal on the back of that workshop thesis. Route 66 redemption, hitting shelves with a dedication scrawled small. Forge who mapped the detours. Reviews trickled in, NPR called it a poignant queer odyssey through flyover forgotten. But Kirkus nitpicked the sentimental detours. Elliot, now adjuncting at NYU for a semester, clipped them all, pinning to his temporary sublet fridge like battle ribbons. Sentimental. He scoffed over takeout dim sum in my Bushwick walk-up, chopsticks waving. They're allergic to heart. Your trucker, Sam, finds grace in that greasy spoon kiss. That's American gospel. I grinned, feet in his lap, the city hum outside a lullaby. Brooklyn suited us. Diverse chaos where hand-holding drew no stares, pride flags fluttering from every brownstone like confetti. We'd upgraded, dinners at Juliana's for pizza that rivaled Zingerman's, walks over the Williamsburg Bridge at dusk, his arm around me as Manhattan glittered like a rival suitor. But cities devour slow. My agent pushed a sequel, deadlines gnawing like rats in the walls, while Elliot's adjunct gigs stretched thin, grant proposals rejected, the academy's churn reminding him of tenure's fragility. Fall deepened, leaves turning Central Park to a rival arboretum, and conflict simmered domestic. One October night, after a launch party for a colleague's memoir, where I'd smiled through toasts to the next great voice, inwardly seething at my own mid-list limbo, we argued over dishes. Suds foamed as I scrubbed, his voice from the living room. You were brilliant tonight, Alex. The panel adored your Sam excerpt. Adored? Or pitted the queer kid still chasing validation? The plate slipped, cracking in the sink like my patience. Water splashed, mirroring tears I wouldn't shed. Everyone's got their big break but me. You edit the greats. I scrape by on advances that barely cover rent. He appeared behind, hands gentle on my shoulders. This bitterness, it's not you. It's the grind. We knew it'd bite. I whirled, sponge dripping. We? Your sabbaticals are paid vacations. Mine's hustle or starve. You get to philosophize. I commodify my soul. His flinch was visceral. Commodify? I've poured my life into your words. Nights redlining, cheering every sale. If that's not partnership, it's patronage. The word poisoned the air, born of exhaustion but true in the twist. His privilege, Boston blue blood turned prof. E's doors I'd rammed with shoulders bruised. He stepped back, eyes stormy. Patronage. Like I'm the white knight saving the scholarship boy. Feels that way sometimes. Silence stretched, broken only by the fridge's hum. He grabbed his coat, door clicking shut like a period. The night fractured me. Pacing the loft, scrolling old and Arbor emails, his encouragements now indictments. Betrayal? Self-inflicted, perhaps, but it festered. My resentment a mirror to his old fears of being the older burden. Dawn found me on the fire escape, city awakening gray, when his key turned. Coffee. He offered a peace thermos from the corner bodega. Face haggard. I walked the bridge. Thought about us, how love's not ledger keeping. It's showing up, even when the draft sucks. I let him in, words tumbling. Apologies laced with truths, the isolation of the writer's life, how his steadiness both buoyed and blinded me to my own strength. I don't want patronage. I want equals. Then equals we are. He pulled a folder from his bag, queries for a memoir of his own, closeted canons, a professor's queer reckoning. Your fire lit this. Co-authors, remember. Relief flooded, and we rebuilt over revisions, his chapters echoing my trucker's loneliness with academic ache. Winter blanketed the city in slushy grace, holidays split. My Ohio for turkey awkwardness, his Boston for a sister's wedding where he introduced me as partner, her hug fierce and welcoming. But spring unearthed deeper fault. Rebecca's ghost, not buried but exhumed. A package arrived at Elliot's sublet. Books annotated in her hand, a note. Found these in storage. Thought you'd want them back. With love are harmless or so he claimed, but I saw the crack. His lingering boxes in the hall, unpacked relics of their life. You kept her marginalia? I asked, flipping a volume of Austen, her script curling like accusations. This line your wit? Sentiment? Or laziness? He shrugged but avoidance screamed. It's nothing. Nothing? It's a shrine. The fight escalated, my accusations of divided heart, his defenses crumbling to confession. I kept them because she was my first real try at normal. Erasing feels like denying the mess that made me. The mess. Me the sequel. Hurt lanced. So I'm the upgrade? Or the experiment? Alex. He reached, but I recoiled, storming to a workshop retreat in the Catskills, the train rattling with unresolved. Solitude sharpened. Hikes through misty woods, bonfires with writers who probed my silence. Trouble in paradise? My mentor asked, passing whiskey. Paradise is myth. This is human. I spilled fragments, the age chasm widening with my rising star, his stalled career a shadow. Betrayal's flavor. Not infidelity but imbalance, the slow poison of unequal orbits. Back in Brooklyn, reconciliation waited. Elliot at the station, roses wilting slightly, eyes hopeful. I burned them. All of it. And wrote this. A chapter raw. His vulnerability laid bare, our love the redemption arc. We cried, forgave, made love in the loft with windows open to spring's breath. But climax crested in June, my sequel deadline looming. His memoir agent but critiqued for professorial dryness. A joint reading at McNally Jackson. His launch, my excerpt, drew crowds but post-event a heckler from the back. An old Ann Arbor alum slurring. Token queer prof and his boy toy, Whitaker was right. Chaos. Murmurs rippling, my fists clenching. Elliot stepped to the mic, voice steel. Token? Tri-tenured trailblazer. And my partner, voice of a generation. Questions on the work or we're done. The room applauded, heckler ejected, but backstage we shook. Adrenaline's crash. You defended us, I whispered. Us first. His kiss sealed it, fierce amid stacked books. Summer stabilized. My sequel and edits, his memoir gaining traction. Betrayals taught resilience. His to my ambition, mine to his past. In Brooklyn's bustle we humanized. Therapy sessions in Greenwich Village. Pride marches hand in hand. A shared garden plot on the roof yielding tomatoes tart as truths. One August eve, skyline aglow, he proposed, not me but narrative. Write the ending with me? House in the Hudson Valley, weekends away from the grind. Yes. Tears joy. America's promise. Not perfection but persistence, two men scripting their saga amid the stars. The Hudson Valley unfurled like a love letter from the earth. Rolling hills quilted in autumn vines, the river a silver vein pulsing with history's ghosts. We'd bought the fixer-upper on a whim, or maybe fate's nudge. A creaky Victorian in Rhinebeck, sagging porch and all 20 minutes from the city by Metro North but worlds away in Seoul. Our narrative arc, Elliot quipped as we signed papers, his hand steady on mine amid the lawyer's drone. At 52, he wore success lightly, memoir bestseller status earning him a guest spot at Columbia. Gray hair a crown rather than concession. Me 30, the rising voice. My sequel detour hearts climbing charts. Tours pulling me coast to coast but always circling home. Renovations bonded us. Weekends hammering floors, painting walls eggshell color of fresh starts. Laughter echoed in empty rooms, his puns on plaster. This drywall's got more layers than my ex's grudges. Mine on joists. Beams like your lectures, supportive but full of hot air. But domesticity's bliss hid tremors. Success amplified scrutiny. My publicist pushed the couple angle. Interviews for Out magazine, photos by the river where we'd pose windswept authentic. It's progress, I argued over breakfast pancakes, syrup sticky as optimism. Progress or product? Elliot countered, fork pausing. His eyes still storm gray held caution. We're out but the gaze. The commodifies. Remember an arbor. An arbor. The scar tissue itched. We pressed on, the spread in out glowing. From campus scandal to literary power duo. Fans emailed, queer kids citing our story as beacon. Elders nodding at the long arc bent toward justice. Yet undercurrents stirred. His Columbia gig demanded more, late nights in the city. My book tour stretched to LA, leaving the house echoing. November's chill brought the first real fracture. I returned from California. Tanned, triumphant, agent buzzing about film options, to find Elliot distant, buried in student theses. Dinner was takeout, Thai conversation stilted. Rough week. I probed, chopsticks hovering. He sighed, rubbing temples. Just. A colleague cornered me. Old Whitaker crony, sniffing for dirt. How's the boy toy faring? Like we're a punchline. Rage flared. Punchline? After everything. I shut it down. His smile forced. But it lingers. And your tour pics fans all over you. Young adoring. Makes me wonder if. Wonder what? That I'm straying. The accusation boomeranged, my own tour temptations flashing. Flirty signings, a bar invite in San Francisco I dodged. Or that you're projecting your insecurities? The fork clattered. Insecurities? I'm the dinosaur in this duo, Alex. You glow, I grade papers. Dinosaur. I stood chair scraping oak. That's self-pity, not love. Stormed to the study, door slamming, curling with my laptop. Words my refuge, but tonight they mocked. Betrayal begins in the mirror. Dawn's light filtered through frost-laced panes, his knock soft. Coffee truce. We mended over mugs, confessions spilling like cream. His fear of fading relevance, my guilt over tour highs that left him solo. We're equals, I reminded, hand over his. Always. Winter deepened, holidays a hearth's warmth. His sister's visit, her kids romping the porch. My mom's tentative FaceTime, Dad's gruff house looks solid sun. New Year's we danced in the living room to Billie Holiday. Resolutions whispered. More presents, less presumption. But spring unearthed buried minds. A letter arrived, anonymous, postmarked Ann Arbor. Clippings of our old scandal annotated with venom. He used you for relevance. Check the dates, his memoir pitched pre-you. Heart-pounding, I confronted Elliot in the garden. Tiller paused mid-row. Explain this. Clippings fluttered like accusations. His face paled, dirt-caked hands rising. God, Alex, it's lies. The pitch was post, but inspired by us. Early days. Us? Or your redemption arc? Doubt poison. Was I muse or mechanism? Never mechanism. He dropped the tiller, pulling me close, soil smearing. You were the spark. But if doubt's this deep. It was. The letter a catalyst amplifying whispers from my inner critic. The age gap now a gulf, his stability a subtle cage. I retreated to the city for a writing residency at Yaddo, Saratoga's seclusion a scalpel for soul search. Solitude carved truths. Hikes through whispering pines, journal pages filling with raw verse. Odes to love's labor, betrayals born of bias. A call from Jake, now a teacher in Detroit. Bro, don't let ghosts win. He fought for you once. Back home, reconciliation bloomed tentative. Elliot at the train, wildflowers in hand. I archived everything, old files, doubts. Wrote you this. A poem, his hand. In your light I am edited / no longer prologue but verse entwined. Tears, embraces, nights reclaiming the bed's center. But climax crested in summer's swelter. A literary festival in Provincetown, queer Mecca. Our first joint event. Crowds adored. Panels on love in the margins. Signings where fans gushed. You give us hope. Post-reading, champagne-fueled, a fan approached, young, earnest, eyes on me. Alex, your work saved me. Dinner? Just talk. Elliot nearby, chatting, a publisher, but his glance caught, wary, wounded. Later in our B&B it erupted. Who was he? A fan. Defensive. Nothing. Nothing? Like your harmless marginalia. The turncoat accusation. Hurt flashed. This about trust or control? Trust. I yelled, window framing Cape Cod's moonlit waves. You see threats in every admirer. I see sabotage in your silences. Silence fell heavy as tide. He packed a bag, city-bound. Space to think. Door shut, leaving me adrift. Days blurred. Walks on the dunes, salt-stung solitude. Betrayal's mirror. My flirtations fed his fears, his withdrawals mine. A call to mom. Love's work, Mijo. Hard as any page. He returned at week's end, bag unpacked, eyes resolute. Therapy solo than us. I own my shadows, you yours. No more projections. We dove in sessions in Rhinebeck, unpacking Ann Arbor's baggage, Brooklyn's imbalances. Humanistic healing flawed forward. Fall's harvest brought bounty. My third book greenlit, his lectures guest packed. One equinox night, porch swing creaking, he murmured. Marry me? Not for show, for us. Ringless Riverview ceremony. Friends, family, vows exchanged like chapters. Vows through betrayals named and unnamed, we revised together. Years ripened. Kids via surrogate, twin boys with his dimples, my curls, the house filled with chaos, love. Scandals faded to footnotes, our story a beacon in lit circles. In America's verdant vein we thrived, not tragic, not flawless but fully human. Two men, eternally editing the epic of us. Decades distilled our saga into something etched, enduring. Like the Hudson's banks, eroded yet eternal. The boys, Liam and Theo, grew tornado quick. Liam the poet, scribbling haikus on napkins at 10. Theo the skeptic, debating us over dinner on climate's fury. Our Victorian, now spruced with their chaos. Soccer gear in the hall, Lego empires on the study floor. Stood as testament to choices compounded. Me pushing 50, gray at the temples like Elliot's once was. A MacArthur whisper circling my latest. Echoes of the ordinary. A tapestry of queer lives from Ohio diners to Brooklyn lofts. Elliot, 70 but unbowed. Retired prof turned mentor in residence. His memoir sequel revisions in ink, a quiet hit among elders seeking second acts. Life's rhythm hummed companionable. Mornings with time's crosswords, his clues sharper than mine. Afternoons walking the river trail, hands linked against autumn's bite. Conflicts softened to skirmishes. My tour absences grumbling Theo's teen moods. Elliot's volunteer lit program pulling him to the city, leaving me to solo parent the angst. Betrayals? They evolved. Not daggers but dull aches like the letter from Chad. Now a reformed coach in Toledo, seeking forgiveness at a high school reunion we skipped. Water under, Elliot said, crumpling it. But I saw the flinch, the old wounds twinge. Winter of my 48th brought the quake. A biopsy routine the doc swore. For a lump I dismissed as aging's toll. Waiting room sterility amplified fears. What if? The boys, now teens, oblivious in school. Elliot prepping lectures, trusting my fine. Results landed post-holiday. Malignant, early, treatable. But the word cancer detonated silence. I told him over cocoa by the fire. Flames dancing like dread. Stage 1. Surgery, chemo. Odds good. His mug shattered on the hearth, cocoa rivulets like tears. Why didn't? Voice cracked, arms engulfing. We'll fight. Together. But fear fermented. His hovering practical to excess. Meal preps, Dr. Chase's, felt like control echoing old patronages. I need space. I snapped one chemo-fogged afternoon for beeping accusation. Not nursemaid. Nursemaid. Hurt lanced his eyes. This is love, Alex, raw ridiculous. Love? Or penance for years I used you? The anonymous letter's poison resurfaced, twisted by morphine dreams. He recoiled. Still that? After vows, kids, this life. The argument spilled to the porch, snow-muffling shouts. Your fear, it's suffocating. I need to rage, not rally. Then rage alone. He stormed inside, doors slam, a fracture. Nights blurred. Treatments sapping strength. Isolation amplifying. The boys rallied. Liam's poems taped to my door. Theo's awkward hugs. But Elliot's distance chilled deeper than winter. Betrayal's guise. His withdrawal a mirror to my Ann Arbor flight. My lashing a echo of Brooklyn barbs. Climax crested in March's thaw. River ice cracking like resolve. Post-op weak but wired, I found his study door ajar, journals open, entries raw, fear devours. What if I lose him? The man who saved me becomes my ghost. Tears blurred ink, his terror not abandonment. I knocked, entering slow. Read them. All. He looked up, gaunt, his own checkup looming unspoken. Alex. Us. Flawed drafts, remember. I knelt, taking his hands. Cancer's the villain, not you. Fight with me, messy human. Confessions cascaded. His terror of widowhood. My guilt overburdening the life we'd built.
No panansa. Iwisparat.
Just presence. Therapy resumed. Family now, the boys' voices adding layers. Liam's dad scared too. Theo's, we need both of you whole. Healing humanized. Chemo couches with his readings aloud. Baldwin's fire fueling fights against fatigue. Spring greened, remission declared in May's bloom. We celebrated Riverside. Picnic of Zingerman's relics shipped east. Boys splashing, our kiss salt-kissed by Hudson breeze. But scars schooled. Health's fragility a reminder. Love's labor eternal. Years gilded on. Liam to Iowa. Theo to Ann Arbor cycles poetic. Grandkids arrived. Tiny hands gripping ours at the house, now legend in family lore. Elliot's 90th. Porch party under string lights. Toast to the professor and the poet. Rewriting till the end. My final book, Endnotes. A Life in Margins, closed the canon. Dedicated to co-author eternal. He read at bedside, voice frail but fervent. Our epic, Alex. Not tragedy, triumph. As his breath eased last, autumn leaves swirling outside, I held him, whispering verses we'd shared. Betrayal stings faded to wisdom. Love in America, for queer hearts, was rebellion rendered domestic, dramatic, yes, but deepened by every detour, every revision. In the quiet after boys flanking, I stepped to the river, scattering his ashes to currents that carried our beginnings. Not end but ellipsis. The story continues in ink, in blood, in boundless blue. Humanistic close. We loved fiercely, faltered fully, rose resilient. In a land of fractured dreams, ours mended whole. Proof that difference, once seated apart, seats eternity together.